welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Tammy Buitendag and I am the founder of the Sleep Company. If you've never been on my channel, I do all things sleep related. We do attachment-based sleep training, positive parenting or conscious parenting, and also we discuss a lot about marriage after children and the dynamic it creates. So if you want, click the like, subscribe, and hit the bell button, and then you'll get notifications of all of our videos. So today's topic, what we're going to discuss, is setting up the optimal sleep environment for your baby or your toddler. And this is a beautiful thing, right? Because it's something you can do from the day that they return from hospital that can have a huge impact on their sleep going forward, that it can improve the quality of their sleep. And if your child is really struggling to sleep now, it's something you can easily implement without even the need of a sleep consultant helping you out. Okay, so it's super beneficial. So what a properly set up environment will do is a few things. Firstly, it will definitely improve the quality of the child's sleep. Secondly, it creates some familiarity, and the more familiar an environment, the better that child will sleep. And finally, it helps to signal the brain that sleep is coming. And we need to be signaled that sleep is coming. We don't realize it, but sleep is moderated by a few things. If I held a gun to your head and I told you sleep, literally your life could depend upon it. You can't will yourself to sleep. So sleep is not something we choose to do. It's moderated by these other factors, and one of them is hormonal fluctuations, and then secondly, the way that we signal the brain that sleep is coming. And the proper environment is a great way to help our child signal their brain that sleep is coming. So what do we want to do when it comes to environment? First and foremost, you want to have a safe sleeping environment. So if you have a baby that's quite small, that means a safe cot. With no bedding, the child is placed on their back, no cot bumpers or loose blankets or anything like that. Okay, so you want to make sure that where they're sleeping is safe. If you choose to co-sleep with your small child, it needs to be done safely, and probably the safest is a co-sleeper attached to the side of the bed. But when we have older kids, okay, let's say the cot is in their own bedroom and they're a little bit older and they're already toddling around and they're like 1 year old, and then you want to make sure that they can't easily climb out of that cot, because falling out of the cot is again dangerous. And finally, if you have a toddler, you want to make sure that it is safe. So if they have the tenacity to continually climb out of their bed and come and look for you, you want to either close their bedroom door if they can't reach the door handle, or put up a baby gate so they can't escape their room. Then also you want to make sure that any plugs are covered, that they can't put their fingers into any sockets, any kind of cabinetry is attached to the wall that it can't fall over and hurt them. And if they're in a big bed and it's got side railings so that they can't roll off and fall on the floor, all of that is quite important. The last thing you want is your 2.5-year-old roaming around the house in the middle of the night and you're unaware of it. Okay, so you want to make sure that your toddler is safe. So personally, I like to keep a child in a cot for as long as possible. There is no benefit to moving a child into a big bed earlier. Absolutely no benefit. And if your child has outgrown their cot, that's why it would be super helpful to actually off the get-go buy a bigger cot. So if you have not purchased a cot or you're looking into purchasing a cot, get the biggest one you can get. Those ones that eventually turn into toddler beds, because then your child can stay in that cot for a lot longer. Next up, we want to start encouraging a comfort item. Now, a comfort item is like a floppy teddy bear or a taglet that looks like a washcloth with tags stitched around it, or a small muslin blanket or something along those lines. Now, the reason why we like comfort items is firstly, if they've got something that is familiar in the cot with them, then as they move through their light sleep cycles and they naturally wake up, it will help encourage them to fall back asleep independently, because they have something there that is familiar that can help them. Also, it provides external comfort. A parent will always be a child's primary source of comfort, but you don't want to be the child's only source of comfort. You want them to have something that they can use independently of you, because you can't always be there, okay? If they go to nursery school or daycare for the first time, you can send that thing along and it will provide them with comfort. So from at least 6 months onwards, I often encourage a comfort item. If your child has not taken to a comfort item, they probably haven't needed to, and probably your breast was a comfort item, or you were the comfort item, or a dummy. And if you take those things away, then you'll find that they will start forming a stronger attachment to some kind of a comfort item. Next up, we want to limit light sources in the room. So the sleepy hormone that helps us sustain our sleep is triggered primarily by darkness and temperature. So the darker the room, the higher that sleepy hormone will become, and the better the child will sleep. So you want to have the room as dark as possible. On a scale of 1 to 10, I want it to be 8.5 plus. It must be super dark. This is where 100% block out curtains or lining is super valuable. I will say that if you buy block out blinds, often they make them to fit perfectly in the window frame, and that tiny little gap on either side is enough light to filter in the room to affect the quality of their sleep. So I personally put curtains that were up until the ceiling and much wider than the window in order to provide optimal block out. Other things to look at is bathroom lights. If the door isn't closed, they cast a shadow in the room. But also weird things like a baby monitor has like a little light on it. That light, when you walk into the room to place your child to sleep, your eyes haven't adjusted to the darkness. So that blue light doesn't seem very bright. But once that child is sleeping and they wake up, that blue light is very bright because their eyes have adjusted. The same with air cons. Some air cons have a light that emits, and then you would want to block it with a block of press stick or some tape or something along those lines. Get that room as dark as possible. If a child is older and they are expressing a fear of the dark, then a very small night light can be encouraged, but the dimmest one that you can get. And often I have parents place it on the floor, in a corner, under a table, so it emits just enough light to provide the child with comfort, but not too much light that it actually illuminates the room. Then we want to have a look at the temperature in the room. That sleep hormone is moderated by light and temperature. And actually we all sleep better when it's slightly cooler. So if you have an aircon in your room, the optimal temperature is about 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit. If you don't have a aircon in your room, then you want to put in like a ceiling fan or some form of a fan to help cool down the room if it's too hot. If it's too cold, likewise, that child will wake up. So we want kind of an optimal room temperature. Heat really is an enemy to sleep. So especially in summer, if it gets exceptionally hot, a child that is damp to the touch is overheating, and you want to dress them in fewer layers or cool down their room a little bit. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're able to check the temperature in the child's room, which brings me to the next thing, which is a sleep sack. Now, a sleep sack is essentially a wearable blanket. It looks like a bag that clips up here. So if you've got a very small baby, they'll probably be swaddled. But once you transition out of a swaddle, look at investing in a sleeping bag or a sleep sack. They're very useful for a few reasons. Firstly, they help to moderate the child's temperature at night. In winter, if they're in a sleeping bag, they'll keep their body temperature throughout the night. Secondly, it's a very strong signal to the brain that sleep is coming, because you only zip them into a sleeping bag when it's time to go and sleep. Thirdly, it helps to prevent kids from climbing out of a cot too early, because they can't open their legs wide enough to kind of get a grip to climb out. So it encourages them to be in the cot for longer. My son, though, sleeping bag and all, he was able to climb out the cot. So it's not foolproof, but it definitely helps to delay them from climbing, or most kids actually, stops them from figuring out how to climb out the cot. And then thirdly, it's basically a wearable blanket. So, a child really only has the ability to coordinate and pull up a blanket closer to the age of 3 if they kick themselves open. So what a wearable blanket then does is that it's a blanket that they can't kick off. Okay, so this is super valuable if you have a child that is small and they're continually waking up throughout the night because they're getting cold. They even actually make sleeping bags up until the age of 5, I think. So if you have a toddler who is in a big bed and they're continually waking up because they kick off the covers and they're too lazy to pull them back up, look at even investing in a larger size sleep sack for that child. Interestingly enough, they can still walk in the sleeping bag. They just end up looking like Maggie from The Simpsons. Yeah. Obviously, if the room is exceptionally hot and you don't have an aircon system or internal heating, then what you want to do is you're going to have to strip down your child. Because remember, heat is the enemy to sleep, okay? And in that case, you will forego, if you don't have aircon, you will forego the sleep sack. You'll probably even forego a baby grow and either just have them in a vest or even just a nappy if wherever you are sleeping is too warm. Next up, I encourage using white noise in the room. And white noise is a few things. Firstly, it is no noise in particular. It is not classical music or lullabies or music. All of those have peaks and lulls. Pure white noise is no noise in particular. It's like a shh, okay, kind of noise. And what this is helpful for is, firstly, it helps to signal their brain that sleep is coming because we only use it with sleep time. Secondly, it drowns out outside noises, which is valuable. If you have older kids that go to bed a little bit later or wake up earlier in the morning, this is useful. Especially in summer, if you have birds chirping at the crack of dawn in summer outside their window, they will wake up, and the white noise will help to drown out the outside noises. Also, if you're hosting a dinner party at your house or you go to a party at somebody else's house, it helps to drown out the noises of that party, which encourages them to sleep. The next thing that is important with the white noise is that it needs to be loud enough to be effective. So if you are standing outside of your child's room and the door is closed, you should just be able to hear the white noise through the room. The optimal, if you have you can download like a decibel counting app onto your cell phone. You don't want it higher than 50 decibels. So anywhere between 30 and 50 decibels is optimal. And then finally, you want the white noise to run consistently throughout the night, okay? Some of these white noise machines switch off after 45 minutes. You don't want that. You want either a machine or an app on a cell phone that has an infinity setting, because if the child is reliant on that to fall asleep and they wake up in a light sleep cycle and there isn't that familiarity there, they'll struggle to fall back asleep. So if you make use of white noise, use it continually. And white noise is something that children generally just outgrow as they get older. So it's not something your child is going to be reliant on forever. But I do personally still make use of some white noise in my 5-year-old's room, especially if we're having a dinner party and it helps to drown out the outside noises. But he doesn't need it every night when he goes to bed. Now, what all these things do is they create some familiarity and consistency with the bedtime, okay? And the more things you have in that to signal their brain that sleep is coming, the better your child will sleep in any environment. A dark room, white noise, sleeping bag, comfort item, and their cot. All 5 of those things you can replicate anywhere. You can replicate them at their grandparents' house, you can replicate it on holiday or at your friend's house if you're at a dinner party. And the more things in that environment that help their brain signal that it's time to sleep, the easier your child will sleep in any environment. So go and leave a comment down below. Tell me which of these things you found have made an improvement in your own child's sleep, which ones haven't you thought about and are going to look at implementing, and any other questions you might have, go and drop them down in the comments. But anyway, have a lovely day. Bye.